It was Halloween night of 2016. I was 23 at the time and lived in my own two-story house. Now, Halloween in 2016 was a lot different than anything I'd seen before. There were a few months back then where anything anyone could talk about were these killer clown sightings and things of that nature. And of course, that year, Halloween took place right when the talk of killer clowns was at its peak. And I remember a lot of parents not allowing their kids to do any trick-or-treating that year because of it. I myself really didn't have anything planned. I was going to hang out with a couple of my friends while handing out candy to the kids that came by, but that was pretty much it. Eventually, for the end of the night, when the doorbell ring started to slow down, the three of us, which was me and my two friends, who I'll call Thomas and Kenny for the sake of the story, started talking about general scary Halloween stuff. At one point, Thomas brought up a haunted house down the street. He explained how we should go and see how scary it was. Now I figured I was to the point where I was too old for all that kind of stuff, but Thomas said it was the real deal. Not that scary, but not scary enough to keep the kids away type of haunted house. Rather, this thing was legit. Or at least, that's what he said. So we all agreed to try it out. It was about a 5-minute walk to get there. I didn't say this out loud, but when we did get there, it didn't look at all like Thomas made it out to be. Honestly, it looked like some teenagers had set it up in only a few hours. We walked inside, and I quickly realized the place was decently packed. There were a lot of other people walking through, but the whole thing just wasn't that scary. I got jump scared a couple times, but that was about the extent of it though. That was until I saw these 3 clowns. I have to admit, the costumes were really good. You could tell they spent a lot of time working on them. What was weird though, was how after they scared us, they continued through the house following us. All of the other people dressed up would just scare us once and wait for the next people to walk through. But these guys literally followed us until we got back outside. They put me on edge, but I didn't say anything. We all walked back to my house, and shortly after, Thomas and Kenny would leave. Maybe 30 minutes after they left, my doorbell went off. Obviously, it wasn't uncommon to get late-night trick-or-treaters, but by this point, it was around midnight. There was no way this was some kid looking for candy, so I ignored it. But just to hear footsteps walking around my backyard a minute later, I was now just annoyed. In my mind, I was almost positive it was just some teenagers trying to mess with me. I flickered my back porch light on multiple times as a way to scare them off. I looked out the window to see if it worked, and that's when I saw 3 men in clown costumes running into the darkness. My mind instantly jumped to earlier that night at the haunted house. But how could they have figured out where I lived? Unless they followed me back home. I went upstairs and texted a group chat with me, Thomas and Kenny, saying, "Guys, I think those 3 clowns from the haunted house were just in my backyard." Kenny would send a text back saying, "Dude, call the cops." I figured that wasn't a bad idea. At the very least, the cops would come here and I'd file a report for trespassing. As I was dialing 911, the heart-dropping sound of one of the windows from downstairs shattering filled my ears. My phone was still ringing by this point. I locked my bedroom door and I hid in the closet. When an operator answered, I whispered that some men in clown costumes had just broken into my house not even a minute ago. I was told to lock myself in a room and hide while staying on the line. A few moments passed when I swear I could hear footsteps slowly making their way upstairs. I tried to stay as silent as I could, but for the life of me, I couldn't keep my breathing down. This went on for what felt like forever, when the relieving sound of police sirens could be heard outside the street shortly thereafter, followed by quick footsteps downstairs and out the back door. After the police made their presence in the house known, I would meet them downstairs. I explained how I heard the intruders leave through the back door, and they would call for backup. Those 3 clowns would not be found that night, and because they were wearing masks the whole time, there was a good chance they'll never be identified. I was left with a broken kitchen window, but surprisingly, nothing stolen. Though, I don't necessarily see this as a good thing, as it proves they weren't there to rob the place. They likely had much worse intentions. Why they targeted me specifically, though, I'm still not sure.